Hi, Julian. How are you today?
Hi, Nick. I'm feeling really excited to be here and to testify on how God has been in my life.
You are a breast cancer survivor. Tell us more about that.
A few months ago, and that was July 2020. How did it all start? I think just like any of us, during the time of COVID-19 phase 1, I was actually, working crazy hours. So before the day ended, I decided, let me take a shower. And this was already about 10 plus in the evening. And I was just looking at myself in the mirror, just the usual, nothing unusual. And I saw something suspicious. And I thought to myself, hey, this is not the usual, but it was visible. And subsequent to that, monitoring for about, 10 to 14 days, I decided to quickly go and get it checked out with the doctors. When I heard those most dreadful words, unfortunately, you have been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. And those words were, like a doomsday for me.
Were you afraid at that point? Were you worried? Perhaps maybe you're worried about your parents or your friends.
Definitely. So some of the initial thoughts after feeling very calm was that I was thinking, am I going to die? What does this mean? All that I'm doing right now seems like it is paling in comparison to this news. I was also thinking, what would my parents be thinking? What would my family be thinking as they were there with me? But I knew that at that moment during the diagnosis, the doctor was very, very caring. She definitely, showed me so much compassion. She reached out. She touched my arm. She made sure that she actually looked me in the eye, and she also, said it with so much smile and so much hope. Those were really the first few things that I noticed.
How did all this affect your outlook in life and, your own self-esteem?
I like to begin with talking about beauty. So I envisioned that one would be very much in her high heels, well-groomed hair, slim dresses, definitely with a corporate bag in hand. And that was really my vision of what a strong lady is. Together with that, also is my worldview of how a strong lady is, who is self-sufficient, self-reliant, independent, also does not cry or need other people. I also thought that a beautiful lady would be one who is with a very focused, laser-focused type of mindset. For the people who know me, I actually spend 3 hours every day just dolling up and removing all the applications. Everyone who also sees me would recognize that I would definitely have my groomed hair, my makeup, my shoes, my clothes. The sense of identity that I have is deeply entrenched in my physical self. So one of the first few things that came to my mind as I walked out of the doctor's office was, how am I going to look when I botak? Were some of the very initial thoughts after the serious considerations. So I would say that, my identity was immediately shaken. I was also pursuing the ambitions in the business world, climbing the corporate ladder, working my days and nights, just to ensure that I am living this beautiful image that I have. So when I was diagnosed, I was extremely lost. In fact, these were the many real conversations that I had with my close ones. I don't know who am I without all these responsibilities, without any of these physical identity, which I know I'm going to lose very quickly. Beauty is not only in the physical form, but it has also taken on how I perceive others. When all these were unfolding, there was nothing that I could grasp. Because as I proceeded on to the different weeks, it all started to be ripped away from me very quickly. Because the hair was falling, I started to cut off my hair. And that was actually a very bold step at that time. And so chopping my hair off from below my shoulder all the way to a pixie cut, which is basically way above the ears, was a huge step that I had never taken in my life. And because of that, I started to realize that, hey, it's quite fun actually having, a shorter or a different hairdo. And my identity started to evolve from that very, very physical change. I told myself, you know what, Jules, let's just follow your heart and just change. But I did not want to. And it was really, really challenging. At the same time, because the chemotherapy drugs made me feel, very hungry. So I have the opposite effect from others. It would be more common to see that people would be very, much losing weight. But for me, I was actually putting on so much weight because I was so hungry all the time. So I would wake up 5 a.m. every day religiously to work out. In the evenings, I would also find some time to work out as well. I eat clean, and I'm very conscious of a whole foods diet, basically just being, keeping to a lean and trim figure. To top it off, basically my boss told me that perhaps maybe it would be good to take some time to rest. So I lost my dynamic career at that time as well.
It seems to me that, you were quite positive throughout all this. Where do you think this positivity stems from?
I would not have recognized myself if it wasn't for the years of faith formation, in the listening that I was actually formed, in the conscious effort to choose seminars and talks of our faith over champagne parties. Mm-hmm. But of course, this only came in the more recent years. I must say that the community in my parish has also contributed significantly. I often do see many parishioners around in the vicinity, and just by bumping into one another, people do ask, how am I? And, even many parishioners who have reached out to ask, do you want to go cycle? Do you want to go for a meal? Basically, just spending time together. I also see God in my boss, who is another instrument of God's love. For the people who have really spent the time to fast and pray for me, to really think of me and to really pray for me in their own ways, the personal touch of invitations really does make a difference. It makes me feel that I'm not alone. My friends and my loved ones that are there with me, it has also taught me to really open up and to accept and need help as well.
So you've gone through a mastectomy and a reconstruction, right? How does that make you feel as a person? How has it affected how you portray yourself as a person, especially as a woman?
So having gone through a mastectomy as well as other transformations physically, I've also begun to transform and to see what beauty is. I've realized that we can lose our physical beauty from time to time, but the real beauty lies in our hearts. And I've realized this through the numerous people that I've met. I remember there was this particular occasion where it was very significant. I had to go through all the tests by myself. I felt extremely alone. That was the first time that I felt extremely alone. I remember going into this one room where I just decided to just close my eyes. And suddenly this lady, she just came in, and she had such a joyful voice. And she said, "Hi, how are you?" And I remember feeling that personal touch. And, at that time she said, "Don't worry." And she was extremely comforting. Bear in mind that this was the first room that I'm entering. She basically comforted me and she really assured me. And I thought, wow, here is this lady who is, really spending the time just to assure me. And I reflected on what am I doing in a day in the office, being as efficient as I can, moving from task to task, looking at a different presentation and the numbers if they're accurate or not. But here is this other person who literally stops for me along the way. So that was the very first initial encounter of what another can actually impact on another person.
What sort of encouragement would you give to people who are in your shoes, suffering from cancer or terminal illness, and how would you encourage them to step out and share their story, and let other people know that, hey, you're not alone?
As I was sharing that, sometimes when we look at ourselves in the mirror too much, as I have, is that we may actually close our hearts to what's really around us. But once we actually open our hearts and close our eyes, that's when things begin to happen. When we open our hearts, we actually do speak to the other person, sharing how we are actually feeling. And it allows the other person to help us. It allows the other person to share their own perspective, which may be something that we do not see. When we continue to allow others into our hearts, we start to find that there's actually comfort. We are not alone. There are also other people who could provide more support.
Okay, so with that, we've come to the end of this interview, and thank you, Julianne, for talking to me. It's very inspiring to know how you have been so motivated and how you've been so positive, throughout this whole journey. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nick.